Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Modasir. I will be reporting to you the Chapter 3 of RA7160, Book 3, Local Government Units, Title 3, The City, Chapter 3, Officials and Offices Common to All Cities, specifically on the City Mayor and the City Vice Mayor. So to start with, let's start on the Article 1, the City Mayor. Section 455, also known as the Chief Executive, powers, duties, and compensations being stipulated in this Article 1. So basically, one of the function of the city mayor is the general supervisor and has the overall control of programs, projects, services, and activities. So number one item is that the city mayor can exercise general supervision and control over all programs and activities, such as number one, determine the guidelines of city policies. So it is the mayor's responsibility to scrutinize the guidelines of all the city policies. Number two, direct the formulation of the city development plan. So the final approval of the city development plan will still be from the mayor. Present the program of government and propose policies and projects for the consideration of the Sangguniang Panglungsod. So the city mayor will provide the programs and the proposals of policies and projects to the Sangguniang Panglungsod. And then from the Sangguniang Panglungsod, the proposal or the policy will then be processed from there. And then initiate and propose legislative measures to the Sangguniang Panglungsod, and then appoint all officials and employees, specifically for the uh, appoint all officials and employees, specifically those earning salaries and wages within the funding of the city government. And then represent the city in all its business transactions. Of course, the city mayor is the one responsible is the one who is very much feasible to represent a certain city on any business transaction, whether it's going to be in a bank or in a corporate meeting, etc., etc. And then seventh item is carry out such emergency measures. So whenever there is an emergency situation happening, it is the city mayor's final say to give order to for example, the city disaster risk reduction management office. It is the mayor's final word that will be followed during this emergency measure. Number 8 is determine the time, manner, and place of payment of salaries or wages of the officials and employees. As I've said earlier, that that the city mayor is the one responsible for all the officials and employees of which salaries and wages are under the funding of the city government. And number 9, allocate and assign the office space to city and other officials and employees. Number 10, ensure that all executive officials and employees of the city faithfully discharge their duties and functions. Since the general administrator of the city is the city mayor, of course, he's the one responsible for overseeing uh, if a certain executive official or employee is doing their duties and functions faithfully and religiously. And then examine the books, records, and other documents of all offices, officials, agents, or employees in the city. Furnish copies of executive orders issued by him to the provincial governor. So there is still a coordination from the city mayor to the provincial governor. And then 13, visit component barangays of the city at least once every 6 months. So it's one of his responsibilities to visit the component barangays every 6 months, and then act on leave applications of officials and employees appointed by him. So the same is true in the national agencies we're in. The final approval for a leave application of employees and officials is the head of the office, which is in this case the executive head of an LGU is actually the city mayor. And then authorized official trips of city officials and employees outside of the city. The same goes from the 14. And then call upon any national official or employee stationed in or as assigned to the city to advise him on matters affecting the city and to make recommendations. A good example for this is that during the pandemic, um, the city mayor needs the advices of the city health office, which is coming from the integrated provincial health office. And then in terms of the distribution of the ayudas, the city welfare development office are the ones giving advice to the city mayor in terms of the relief goods to be distributed during the pandemic. And then he can also authorize payment for medical care, necessary transportation, and subsistence, hospital or medical fees of city officials and employees who were injured or affected during the time of their duty in the city hall, for example, or under their duty. Number 18, the city mayor also has the power to solemnize marriage. Of course, we know all about that. And then conduct of an annual palarong panglungsod, which is very much common among the cities. Submit an annual report containing a summary of all matters pertinent to the management, administration, and development of the city. Okay, another function of a city mayor is as an enforcer of laws and ordinances and exercising corporate power. So, enforcer of laws and ordinances being the one who is approving the ordinances coming from the Sangguniang Panglungsod, and the corporate power, which has the power, it is his power to know or execute these corporate duties and responsibility. So we have number one, ensure that the acts of the city's component barangays are within the scope of their prescribed powers. And then number two, call conventions, conferences, seminars, or meetings of any elective and appointed officials on such subject as may be deemed important for the promotion of general welfare of the local government unit and its inhabitants. A good example for this one is that during the time of the Marawi siege, wherein the LGU, specifically the city mayor of Marawi City, have to call on the attention of the Office of the President, for example, the Department of National Defense, and other offices that could help the local government unit in pursuing or in fighting the armed terrorist groups. And here, issue such executive orders for that matter, entitled to carry the necessary firearm within his territorial jurisdiction. So they are entitled also to carry on firearms within their territorial jurisdiction, within their city of jurisdiction, since we're talking about city mayor. Number five, act as deputized representative of the National Police Commission, and he can call upon the appropriate law enforcement agencies to suppress disorder, riot, lawless violence, rebellion, or sedition. This is what I have told you earlier that happened in Marawi siege at that time of the attack. And then in here, the city mayor also can initiate and maximize the generation of resources and revenues. Number one, he can require each head of office or department to prepare and submit an estimate of appropriation for the ensuing calendar year. If you can still remember our fiscal administration subject, wherein on the process of budgeting, wherein it will start from the city mayor submission of the budget to the sanggunian. But before the city mayor can submit the budget, the total appropriation or estimates or budget for the ensuing year, he shall be requiring each head of office to submit their own estimates of appropriation. So it will start from there, the budget preparation, and prepare and submit to the sanggunian for approval the executive and supplemental budgets in the city. Same. Ensure that all taxes and other revenues of the cities are collected, issue licenses and permits, and suspend or revoke the same. So since the city mayor is the one issuing the issuing authority, or the one he is the signatory of the licenses and permits, he or she can also suspend or revoke that license or that permit. Issue permits without need of approval. By the way, just an example for that. When the city mayor have issued building permits, I can speak about building permits since these are the ones I am familiar of. When the city mayor issues a building permits, and then there is, the contractor, for example, or start building or starting the construction, and then whenever there is an inspection coming from the city engineer's office, and they found out some faulty activities within the construction area, the city mayor can suspend or revoke the building permit issued by him, and that will cause the stoppage of the construction activity. And then issue permit without need of approval thereof from any national agencies, since the chief executive officer of a certain city is the city mayor, and requires owners of illegally constructed houses, buildings, or other structures to obtain necessary permit subject to the fines and penalties. Of course, it has the power to collect fines and penalties for those individuals or even companies who have constructed illegal houses or buildings and other structures without permit. Adopt adequate measures to safeguard and conserve land, mineral, marine, forest, and other resources of the city. And then institute or cause to be instituted administrative or judicial proceedings for violation of ordinances in the collection of taxes, fees, or charges. The taxes that we mean here are not the taxes collected by the BIR, but the taxes collected by the LGU, as we have discussed this one in the previous reports. And then in here, there's also ensure the delivery of basic services and the provisions of adequate facilities. Number one, ensure that the construction and repair of roads and highways funded by the national government shall be as far as practicable carried out in a spatially contiguous manner and in coordination with the construction and repair of roads and bridges of the city. This is actually happening when there is a coordination between the city engineer's office and the Department of Public Works and Highways. The one preparing the plans are coming from the proposal is coming from the LGU, and the one preparing the plans is coming from the DPWH, and then the DPWH will be the one to implement such projects. So the funding will be downloaded from the LGU going to DPWH. Then coordinate the implementation of technical services, including public works and infrastructure programs rendered by national offices. So this is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and then during his incumbency, the city mayor shall hold office in the city hall. Of course, the city hall is actually where the city mayor's office should be located. Compensation, it's salary grade 30. And then we have Article 2, the City Vice Mayor, Section 456 of RA7160, stipulated the powers, duties, and compensations of the City Vice Mayor. The City Vice Mayor is the one presiding the Sangguniang Panglungsod. Whenever they will be preparing for an ordinance, there is a Sangguniang Panglungsod who will be uh, convened in the city hall, and then the one who will preside the meeting is the city vice mayor, and then appoints all officials and employees of the SPL or the Sangguniang Panglungsod. Appoints all officials and employees of the Sangguniang Panglungsod only, because the one appointing the official and employees under the funding of the city government is the city mayor. Number 3, it assumes the office of the city mayor for the unexpired term of permanent vacancy and exercise the power on performs duties of the city mayor in case of temporary vacancy. The number 3 would mean, for example, this happened actually here in Marawi when uh, a death of a certain city mayor, and then automatically the vice mayor have assumed the remaining unexpired term of the city mayor. So the vice mayor became the mayor, and then the first vote city councilor became the vice mayor. So it's a chain of work. And then exercise the power, other power, other power as provided by law or ordinance, as may be deemed necessary. And then city vice mayor's compensation, it's a bit lower than that of the city mayor. It's actually salary grade 28 for highly urbanized cities and salary grade 26 for component cities. The reference for this one, as mentioned in RA7160, is this is still under RA6758. So that will be all, and thank you very much.